Happy New Year and welcome to Faith Nation. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm John Jessup. A new year is often seen as a fresh start, but not here in the Beltway, where impeachment is still the driving story. After months of investigation, hours of public and private hearings, and long and fiery debates, the historic party line House vote to impeach President Donald J. Trump is now in the hands of the Senate. So exactly when will senators get their chance to weigh in? Washington correspondent Jenna Browder reports.
A historic vote in the House last night as President Trump becomes the third American president to be impeached. The vote happened down party lines, with all Republicans voting against impeachment and 3 Democrats breaking with their party.
A great day for the Constitution of the United States. A sad one for America.
Democrats charging President Trump with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress.
Article 1 is adopted.
Both sides making the same arguments they've made for months.
But this isn't just about Donald Trump. They don't just hate Donald Trump, Madam Speaker. They hate the 63 million Americans who voted for this president, the forgotten men and women of this country who have been left behind, Madam Speaker.
His actions reflect precisely the type of conduct the framers of the Constitution intended to remedy through the power of impeachment.
President Trump responding in real time from his rally in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Oh, I think we have a vote coming in. So we got every single Republican voted for us? Whoa. Whoa.
And not mincing words about the Democrats.
Through their depraved actions today, crazy Nancy Pelosi's House Democrats have branded themselves with an eternal mark of shame.
And now new uncertainty. Speaker Nancy Pelosi declining to say when or even if Democrats will deliver the articles to the Senate, citing concerns about an unfair trial. Democrats would like to call witnesses in the Senate, something usually only done in the House. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has already rejected the request.
We'll make a decision as a group, as we always have, as we go along.
Thank you, Jenna. Well, Jenna just reported the Senate takes up the impeachment battle perhaps in a matter of weeks. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us now. Abby, what can we expect?
Well, John, I think we can expect something slightly more civil than what we've seen in the House and a little more thoughtful. Pretty much right when the impeachment inquiry began in the House, members were very quick to pick a side, declare how they'd vote, but already we're seeing that is playing out a little differently in the Senate. I've spoken to both Republicans and Democrats, like Senator Mark Warner, who tell me they're going to wait and see what happens. Take a look.
This kind of proceeding has only happened a few times in our history. It's incumbent upon me as a potential juror to reserve judgment until I hear all of the facts as they're presented, and then I'll have to make a judgment. And again, my hope would be the House has always been the place where people are a little more kind of at each other. It doesn't matter which party's in control. I hope the Senate will be, it's always been viewed as the more temperate body, the body that is a little more reflective, and I hope that we'll all take the very seriousness of this role, that we'll have a very important judgment to make. Some of the allegations now about the president in regards to Ukraine, if they are true, they raise serious concerns with me. But again, I owe it to the president and I owe it to the process to come in with an open mind and listen to the facts as they're presented.
Now, President Trump is expected to be acquitted in the Senate, but there will be about 6 key senators to keep an eye on as it moves to the upper chamber.
Abigail, any indication on how quickly the Senate trial will move through the Senate?
Well, John, there's a lot of things up in the air right now, but there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite on either side for a long, drawn-out trial in the Senate. But right now, Senate Democrats want to call witnesses and have submitted the 4 people that they want to hear from. But Republicans, like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, is arguing that he's very against that. He doesn't think senators have learned enough, or he thinks that senators have learned enough from the House inquiry to move directly to a vote on the 2 articles of impeachment. And he said but right before Christmas that he does not believe President Trump will be removed from office, but he will need 51 votes to either call witnesses or move directly to a vote on the 2 articles of impeachment after both sides present their case, which is expected to take about 2 weeks. And those 51 votes could be hard to come by if some of those more moderate Republicans insist on hearing from witnesses.
And Abigail, last question. Now that we're officially in 2020, we're officially in an election year. So for some of the senators who will be serving as jurors, they're also running for president. How will it work for them being on the campaign trail but also sitting for the Senate trial?
Well, John, there have been many analysts who've said some of the biggest losers of impeachment are those senators who are still in the presidential race. The Senate trial is mandatory, and this will take place, is expected to take place right as these senators, it's most crucial for them to be campaigning in states like Iowa, in states like New Hampshire, right just around the corner from the Iowa caucus, from the New Hampshire primary. And not only that, they've really been hard pressed for media coverage as this impeachment trial has gone on. So it does not spell well for those senators, but people like Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden, this is a great opportunity for them to have their boots on the ground while all those senators, their competition, are stuck in Washington.
One man's pain, another man's gain. Abigail Robertson, thank you for your reporting. Well, joining us now is Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, John.
So where do we go from here politically, and which party stands more to lose on the issue of impeachment?
Well, on paper, the Democrats have more to lose, and here's why. Because it's gone out of Nancy Pelosi's hands. You know, eventually it's going to get to McConnell and the Senate and the Republicans, and there's going to be an acquittal. Unless some unforeseen evidence comes up at the last moment, there's going to be an acquittal. And when there's an acquittal, that means Donald Trump can run around the country and say, look, I'm an innocent man. And I think at that point, the Democrats will be put on their heels a little bit, and then it'll become a game of chess politically as we move forward.
During the House proceedings, public opinion didn't change much at all. Now that the vote is over and done with, what should we be looking at specifically when it comes to polling on this issue?
I want to see the polling post-acquittal. I think that's important. I also want to see the polling in those, once again, we've talked about it, those 31 Trump districts that Democrats are in control of. That'll be key going forward, John, for sure.
Republicans love to cast Democrats as the villains in impeachment. How much responsibility, though, is there any, that lies with the president and some of his allies when it comes to impeachment?
There is responsibility that lays at the feet of this president. I don't think there's any question about it. Look, he's an unconventional president, and everybody cheers it and says, great, he's unconventional, we like him, he's a citizen politician, he's a businessman. Here's the problem. If he had 10 to 20% more discipline, he wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. In other words, what he did, he calls it the perfect call. Let's be honest here, okay? Even Republicans, if you injected truth serum into them, they would all say that was not a perfect call. And that's because he is not a politician. He shoots from the hip. But when you shoot from the hip, you make mistakes. And I think in this case, it's a mistake that burned him because, from a political standpoint, there were some folks out to get him at any little slip-up. So I think that's really important.
David, this is a president who cares very much about image and perception. Behind the scenes, he said he really doesn't care, it doesn't bother him that he's being impeached, but behind the scenes, what do you sense that that this means for him?
He's bothered. He understands there's an asterisk behind it, you know, in that first paragraph of his bio from now on in all of history. And also we see not just the tweets that are coming from him, but the all caps tweets. That says something. I mean, when we know what all caps means when you're, you know, texting your buddy. You're not happy with them.
Slightly bothered, maybe.
That's right. When you're texting me, it's in all caps, for example, and you're not happy with me. Clearly, he's not happy, and so it's frustrating to him. But you know, cue up the music of who has the last laugh, and we'll see. And that's on November 3rd, 2020. We'll have a conversation about that last laugh.
I imagine we will have lots of conversations about that.
For sure.
All right, David Brody, thank you so much for being with us.
John.
And again, Happy New Year.
You too, sir.
Well, before impeachment, it was the Russia investigation. When we return, a look back at the fallout over the Mueller report. That story next.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. Well, in closed-door meetings before the historic impeachment vote last month, House Democrats decided against adding an article for obstruction of justice based on the Mueller report. The highly anticipated 500-page report published last April by special counsel Robert Mueller came after 2 years of investigation, about 500 search warrants and thousands of subpoenas, and 34 indictments against Russian nationals and several people close to the Trump 2016 campaign. The report's main findings: 10 instances of possible obstruction and no collusion. Well, the Mueller report has left many people on both sides of the aisle with unanswered questions. Republicans siding with the president claim that it completely cleared him of any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Democrats still say not so fast, as both sides try to claim the high ground. Amber Strong has this look back on the aftermath from the White House to Capitol Hill.
The dust is still settling after Robert Mueller's hours-long grilling here on Capitol Hill Wednesday, with both sides spinning their talking points to fit the narrative.
It was a historical day because today is the day that we closed the book on this investigation.
So this was a very big day for our country.
The president and Republicans immediately claiming victory. But Democrats maintained the hearings delivered exactly as expected.
Today was a watershed day in telling the facts to the American people. With those facts, we can proceed.
It started with Mueller dismantling the president's repeated claims the report cleared him of wrongdoing.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Democrats also painting a picture of a chief executive determined to impede an investigation and get rid of the special counsel.
Your investigation actually found substantial evidence that McGahn was ordered by the president to fire you, correct?
Yes.
But Republicans pushed back, looking to undermine the credibility of Director Mueller's team.
6 of your lawyers donated $12,000 directly to Hillary Clinton. I'm not even talking about the $49,000 they donated to other Democrats, just the donations to the opponent who was the target of your investigation.
I have been in this business for almost 25 years, and in those 25 years, I have not had occasion once to ask somebody about their political affiliation.
Republicans insist it's time to move on.
I challenge the Democratic colleagues, get over the election of 2016. Run in 2020 if you want.
The president's legal counsel following suit.
This was the Democratic Party's best case to put forward today. As many of your friends have said, they did not move the needle.
But Democrats vow to persist with more investigations. And when it comes to impeachment,
I think that if we go down that path, we should go in the strongest possible way. And that's all I'm going to say about the subject.
While the hearings generated a media frenzy, it probably did little to convince the public to support impeachment. According to an NBC Wall Street Journal poll, only 21% of registered voters favor that move. Amber Strong, CBN News at the Capitol.
Coming up, investigating the origins of the Russia investigation and what we now know about the start of the Mueller report.
I
the Homefront.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Homefront, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Homefront. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Homefront, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Well, fallout over the release of the Justice Department's Inspector General report is far from over. The FBI must now tell a FISA judge by January 10th how it plans to avoid failures like the ones identified by IG Michael Horowitz. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips takes a look at the public release and the sharp response.
Horowitz tried to keep his testimony consistent with the 400-page report on the Russia investigation, dubbed Operation Crossfire Hurricane. He could not, though, deny methods used by the FBI that some are calling sloppy at best, criminal at worst. The IG's report released Monday essentially found just cause to initiate the Russia investigation, something the IG reiterated right off the top.
We found that Crossfire Hurricane was open for an authorized investigative purpose and with sufficient factual predication.
He quickly followed that statement with acknowledgement investigators did not follow proper rules and procedures along the way. This included omitting or changing information on FISA applications that would allow surveillance of Trump campaign aide Carter Page. Information like the fact that the infamous Steele dossier, which was a big consideration in approving the applications, had been funded by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The FISA court approved the surveillance applications 4 times.
The circumstances reflect a failure, as we outline in the report, not just by those who prepared the applications, but also by the managers and supervisors in the Crossfire Hurricane chain of command, including FBI senior officials who were briefed as the investigation progressed.
Horowitz went on to explain an overall lack of oversight within the FBI.
Where time and again during our OIG interviews, FBI managers, supervisors, and senior officials displayed a lack of understanding or awareness of important information concerning many of the problems that we identified.
Still, Horowitz underscored finding no political bias during his investigation, something Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham rebuffs.
What has been described as a few irregularities becomes a massive criminal conspiracy over time to defraud the FISA court, to illegally surveil an American citizen, and to keep an operation open against a sitting president of the United States.
Graham read aloud several text messages by those at the highest levels of Operation Crossfire Hurricane.
I'm all riled up. Trump is an effing idiot, is unable to provide a coherent answer. Just went to a Southern Virginia Walmart. I could smell the Trump support. People in charge.
Horowitz maintained those messages did not indicate an improperly authorized investigation.
I believe strongly that it's time to move on from the false claims of political bias. And those who showed great interest in the question of politically motivated investigations against President Trump should show the same concern about politically motivated investigations requested by the President or his Attorney General.
Attorney General Bill Barr has been very outspoken about his disagreement with Horowitz that the investigation was open for proper reasons. Same thing from U.S. Attorney John Durham, who is still conducting a criminal investigation into the matter. The IG's report only recommends disciplinary action against several of those involved in getting the Mueller investigation off the ground. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thank you, Eric. Some say those who oppose President Trump are determined to take him down at any cost. But could it end up hurting the country they say they're trying to save? That story next.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
The president's supporters say never-Trumpers have been in meltdown mode ever since his 2016 election, prompting unprecedented investigations and the nation's third-ever impeachment against a sitting president. David Brody recently interviewed Wall Street Journal columnist Kim Strassel about why she thinks this all poses a danger to democracy.
According to Webster's, the definition of resistance is pretty straightforward: a refusal to accept or comply with something. It happens all the time. Children resist bedtime. Adults resist change. In Donald Trump's case, the resistance can be described as a movement of biblical proportions.
They've been plotting to overthrow the election since the first hour that we won.
Wall Street Journal columnist Kimberly Strassel seeks to explain who the they is in the book called Resistance at All Cost: How Trump Haters Are Breaking America.
These were the folks who, from the very moment Donald Trump was elected, they viewed him as illegitimate and occupying that office, and that they were therefore, in extension, allowed to take any actions they wanted to get rid of him.
Strassel argues that criticism of the president is one thing, but blind rage that crosses barriers and undermines our institutions is a whole other level.
The very beginning of the resistance, and one of the first examples of what I call undiagnosed Trump derangement syndrome, is Jim Comey.
And Strassel thinks Comey's multiple sneaky moves are at the top of the resistance list, like taking private notes while meeting with Trump and then leaking them to get a special counsel appointed in the Russian investigation.
It is still astonishing to me that we are saying out loud that the FBI launched a counterintelligence investigation into a presidential campaign. I mean, this is beyond all reasonable things you do.
And as Strassel points out, reasonable and resistance don't usually go hand in hand. Look at the judiciary, for example. One by one, a judge somewhere in America can impose his or her view on the entire country by proclaiming a nationwide injunction time after time against Trump policies.
There's a presumption that the executive branch gets the kind of benefit of the doubt when it comes up. They're ignoring all of this stuff just because they can't stand the guy. And so, but it's doing damage to our judicial system.
Although they often claim it is the president doing the damage.
The institutions of our government are under assault because of this president, and he could do some damage.
He's eroding our democracy.
I do think he is a bit norm-breaking, but if you step back and you look objectively, it tends to be mostly in his speech, in his rhetoric, in his tweets, and in his demeanor in office. It's harder to make the case that that in any way affects his departments or his policy, or, in fact, I think if you step back, this has been one of the more rule-bound administrations that we have had in a very long time.
Lines like that will send the Trump haters into an angry meltdown. They see Trump as the one breaking rules and now want him impeached.
What are you hearing out there and kind of in real America, if you will?
Anger. And it is anger. You know, we talk about the anger of the resistance, but there is real serious anger among average Americans about what they see happening, the lack of due process, the constant accusations of criminal activity.
Strassel says we've seen this behavior before.
And I hope that the American people will see through this charade.
She sees the Brett Kavanaugh hearings as all part of the resistance effort.
There's a lot of examples of that. Impeachment as a partisan political tool, you know, the degradation of the Senate confirmation process, the lack of trust we have in the DOJ and the FBI. If we don't start calling out some of this behavior and holding people accountable right now, it will only get worse regardless of whether Donald Trump is president or not.
It's not just one party either. The resistance has come from what some describe as the deep state, and also within the walls of the White House.
People will justify this and say, well, you must follow your moral conscience. No, your job is, in fact, to do your job. The president was elected to institute policies.
They often get help from a complicit media, writing damaging headlines while hiding behind generic and anonymous sourcing regarding vital and sensitive national security information.
When you have people out there saying a U.S. government official, they are purposely attempting to cloak that they have been talking to a partisan, but they don't want you to know that they're talking to a partisan. It's bad behavior.
It all begs one final question. While these resistance haters call Trump bad for America, what have their actions possibly done to cause our country major harm?
They need to understand that they have so convinced themselves that he's doing all this damage, and it's that terrible human failing we all have, right? Where often the things we accuse other people of doing are the things we are doing ourselves.
David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, David. And as the impeachment battle moves to the trial phase, tune into Faith Nation and CBN News for all the latest developments and analysis. Well, that does it for tonight's Faith Nation. Thank you again for watching. Happy New Year, and hope to see you tomorrow.